Hello everyone, welcome to the Ahdurin region. I'm your host Ahdurin himself. It's been a year, and so I think in honor of the year, in honor of December being challenge month, in honor of all of that sort of stuff, we do a challenge video. Not just any challenge video, no, we do the challenge video that sort of made this channel what it is, or at least have the subscriber count it has at this point, which is a Ditto only challenge here on Pokemon Explorers of Sky. First off, if you haven't already, I would recommend checking out the Blue Rescue Team one because that one was also bonkers. Spoiler alert, this one's also going to be bonkers as well. So let's jump straight into it. As always, of course, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all those things you ought to do when supporting a YouTube channel like this one here. As you can see, we've got Ditto and Ditto 2. Also, I never noticed this until just now when editing, but one of the disappointed faces for this Ditto is the treasure chest, which is one of the scenes that you see when going through, I think it's special episode number 4, the one with Team Charm and AWD, and how Ditto's actually one of the Time Gear Guardians, but you get the gist. Anyway, it's a very exciting moment as we get started here. So, double Ditto duty. That's how we're rolling here. 2 Dittos. It's got the same sort of stuff as you remember if you've seen the Blue Rescue Team video. Same sort of idea. Transform is the only move we got. It's got 1 power point. It transforms you into a Pokemon that appears on that floor. So, for example, Partner here is transformed into a Corsola, and it disappears when you move on to the next floor. Power points don't restore, though. And also, you do not gain the typing. You do not gain any of the moves, you don't gain any of the abilities. This Ditto, as you can see here, is equally as depressed as I am about the fact that when transforming, you basically don't get anything, which is fun, and by fun, I mean incredibly depressing. But away we go nevertheless. As we get through Beach Cave, you can see a little bit of our stat bonuses and other things like that. Limber is our ability, which actually came in handy for a while. It also shows that whether or not you've transformed. So we pick up an Oranberry and continue on through the cave. Most of the dungeons in general operate under this philosophy. We're going to struggle our way to victory. This was a strategy that we eventually figured out was the best strategy to use in the Blue Rescue Team run, and I decided to go with that same idea here. Now, struggle in these games is actually a pretty powerful move. It's an actual move with a power base and everything. It is a normal type move in this specific generation, as opposed to typeless, and is very effective at beating very simple bosses. Transform doesn't work in these boss battles here, so we just struggle our way to victory. Partner using Transform, that's not going to be a trend, which you'll notice eventually as well. Struggle, and cross our fingers that we're able to recover because while it is a powerful move, it also deals a lot of damage. In fact, it is guaranteed 1/4 of your health, which becomes a slight concern when walking around the dungeon and various Pokemon showing up out of nowhere. I left this in here, by the way, because it's very funny how Diglett recognizes that Ditto, and then I stand on it, and Diglett has no idea what it is. And this line in particular just doesn't work when you have 2 of the same Pokemon. Maybe Dittos. It's not a footprint you see around here, except I recognize that one and not this one, which, again, I find that very funny. It's like, yes, I know it's a Ditto, except not a Ditto, but maybe a Ditto. Anyway, it's time to make a team with our friend here. We need to make a team name. What's a good team name for us? Well, what is our method of victory? To struggle. Therefore, we are Team Strugglers, because, like Ditto, we're all struggling our way through things. Shout out to Scott Kramer, another YouTuber that you should check out if you have time. Also, I was Wigglytuff hands it over right about now. There you go, the sky blue bow there. I thought I would leave that in because people are always interested in what type of bow we have. They always ask it in the comment section, and I think for engagement purposes, you should ask me again anyway. Is that a slight difference from the normal things we say? Shout out to mah-dry-bread as well. Anyway, now that we've got a strategy in place and items and all this cool stuff, it's time to go into the Drench Bluff. And I'm running. I honestly, at this point, I'm gonna be honest. I do not know what I was planning to do here. I'm running around for no real reason. I think I was just trying to hope that you would mud slap the opponent, but I know. Don't ask me. No idea what I'm doing here. Eventually, I realize what I'm doing. Hopefully, sooner or later. I don't know why I left this whole scene in, actually, now that I think about it, and we attack anyway. You might have noticed there as well, this is one reason why I left this particular scene in. The stat bonuses, as we jump over to the next dungeon here. The stat bonuses for Ditto are not good. And what do you mean by not good? You mean +1s for everything? No, my dear friend. How about we just ignore some stats? Sometimes you just get the HP bonus. Sometimes it's just one random attacking stat. As a reminder, Struggle being a physical type move means their special attack basically doesn't matter, making an entire stat completely useless. And of course, HP increasing not mattering a lot. I mean, it does defensively, and of course, defensive boosts are very good. But when it comes to recoil damage, we're just gonna get the hit anyway. So, like a good example here is here in this situation where we're dealing with multiple enemies, both of us in a dangerous situation. We find out what a max elixir is for the first time, and us trying to find a way to beat a Geodude. Partner struggles himself into death. Again, not great. Eventually, though, after a little bit of struggling ourselves, you're going to hear that a lot, we reach the pinnacle, the peak of this dungeon where Drowsy is asking Azuriel, hey, do you mind just going in this mountain and stealing from a monster? No problem. It's not a big deal. I just can't do it myself. And then we show up to be like, hey, don't do that. That's not a good thing. And Drowsy's like, no, I'm doing it anyway. Also, goodbye. So, first boss battle, we go. Now, Drowsy is fun. Transform. Well, we're going to Geopebble here and then transform our way to victory. Partner is not exactly interested in transforming themselves, which again is a trend. We go for XI seeds. You're going to notice a lot of items, including Geopebbles, XI seeds, all this fun stuff, as the partner just kind of sits there. This is how a lot of them are going to turn out. We're going to struggle to do big damage if they get near us, and otherwise just kind of chuck rocks. That will be a trend you will see throughout. I'm going to be honest, a lot of the boss battles are very entertaining because strategies vary significantly. So please stick around to watch how some of them are kind of wild. As we move on to the next dungeon here, Waterfall Cave. Struggle, of course, doing massive damage there. You saw 52 points of damage there, 48 for the partner. Again, it is a move that is good, but it requires a lot of planning. You need the Oran Berries, you need the Reviver Seeds. Oh, Arceus knows we need the Reviver Seeds. As we continue forward from there, eventually reaching the peak, or the valley, I guess technically speaking, where the gem is here. There's this giant gem that's just kind of vibing. Or Ditto, so we can't exactly pick it up because Ditto don't really have hands. I feel like partner here is just trying to grab it, and all it's doing is it's just sliding off the gem, which isn't great here. Also, we get the slight vision of like a waterfall when you push it, and water is flowing, and it pushed us, and then poof, there we go, to the hot springs, yay! And this is another fun scene here, because I'm wondering, I know Ditto has the genetic makeup to stay solid enough to move, but I could partially imagine us just, like, if we stuck here long enough, we'd probably melt into the hot spring itself, which wouldn't exactly be great. And so we leave. Later on, as you can see here, it's a calm, cool day in the guilds, and Team Skull is here. Or Zubat and Coughing. This isn't the complete Team Skull, as they will soon inform us. And instead, they're gonna, I guess, luckily pick us out there. I guess, I've always wondered, in this game, mathematically speaking, all the Pokemon are basically identical. I mean, you can tell the difference between, the male and female lines and various differences there, like Pikachu's with the lightning bolt versus the hearts and stuff like that. But how did they know that the partner was I assume the voice is different then, but you don't ever hear that in the anime. Well, you sometimes do. Now I'm already second guessing myself. Anyway, this is what I was thinking about as Team Skull decides to ruin my partner's confidence for no reason whatsoever, just because they don't like him or her or them. Actually, they're ungendered. Fair thing to know. Anyway. We continue with more missions and other things like that as we proceed on this adventure. Later on, much later on, in fact, much later on, Team Skull has now joined us, and by joined us, I mean joined the guild and has followed us as we enter into Apple Woods, hopefully to have a nice, calm, cool, completely consequence-free situation here as we travel through Apple Woods ourselves. We go into the deep Apple Woods, yes, the deep part of Apple Woods, as we look and find the perfect apples, yes, the best apples, the ones Wigglytuff looks for beyond all else, only to find that somehow Team Skull has shown up before us. I also do not know how exactly Skuntank climbed up this tree, being an animal with 4 feet and no real hands to do the climbing thing. I also don't know how exactly they fooled them, I guess. What was the idea here? We were going to pick them up and then they were going to knock us out? Or the apples are poisoned, or, I'm not sure what the strategy is. Nevertheless, they beat us up and beat up their own partner in the process, as they do, and now we have this weird sort of, toxic smell on us, presumably, as they've also somehow stolen and or eaten all of the perfect apples. Again, is this the only tree that has them? I don't even know. Later on, expedition time. It's time to find out who joined the expedition here. Loudred, congratulations, you're there. Corfish, congratulations, you're there. Bidoof, the MVP, he's voted most improved player. Sunflora, Chimeco, Team Skull's obviously going. That's everything except the people on the back, which is also everybody. Diglett, Dugtrio, Krogunk, us two, the Ditto, the other Ditto, Wigglytuff's going, Shadow's going, the swap cauldron thing is going. Everybody showing up and showing out as we go towards the expedition to a lake that-a-way. First things first, as we get set here, the Double Ditto and Bidoof Squadron going around the coastline here. Specifically, I think this one's Craggy Coast. Going around the coastline as Partner Ditto has decided to become the leader of the team, which honestly, the fact that we're talking about as much as a Zelda character, or a Zelda main character, aka just all the links, and Bidoof being Bidoof, kind of makes sense. Craggy Coast, we go. Now, this is the first dungeon that has a partner, an extra partner, the non-Ditto partner. And I'll be honest, these are sometimes, usually, the best ones. Because while both of us can't hit much of anything, Bidoof can. And so can other future potential partners. So this is where I actually took the opportunity to gain a little bit more experience, try to get through and, not avoid the fights as much. Because very quickly you'll have to go through and avoid fights because you'll be at -2 health, which is not exactly the best situation to be in. Now, situations like this aren't great because Bidoof by himself isn't a great fighter. Later on, though, future partners, and if you play this game, you understand who those are much, much more beneficial. We get through everything. It's time to go through the forest. That is our final destination, and that is Foggy Forest, a dungeon that, unsurprisingly, is very foggy. Again, struggle strategy, try to avoid the quick attacks and the domination that opponents could lead us through, and trying to avoid the big damage attacks, which can be problematic considering health is a very important resource. It's almost like stamina or mana in the game. Get through that, we find a little gem that plugs into a statue that clears the fog. Again, we're just zooming through the story here as we get up to the Steam Cave area and prepare ourselves for this matchup. Now, this one has a boss fight. This is also the first one that is really concerning to me. All of the other dungeons in the past have bosses that are relatively easy to work around. Our struggle attacks are powerful attacks, so it's not that big of a deal. This boss, to me at least when going through, was the first boss that was a real boss. The boss that had boosted stats, specifically boosted HP, which isn't great considering how vital HP is as a resource to us. Also, because I think I'm mandated to do this as a Wigglytuff fanboy, this is one of my favorite scenes because Wigglytuff legitimately does not view either of these two or the toxic gas combo as a threat, which I find hilarious. And I greatly enjoy that as we continue through Steam Cave and all the big issues that can occur in this cave. Meanwhile, as we go over to this area here, we reach the pinnacle. The rest of the squad is coming up. They're talking about how Groudon's this really dangerous creature that you should definitely not fight. Also, we're about to fight Groudon. So, we need to fight a legendary beast that has, hundreds and hundreds of health points and can set up Sun. Not great? Time to get started. Here we go. This is one of the first boss fights. We got a few Reviver Seeds, we've got Sleep Seeds and all that fun stuff. This is where, again, the partner not using Transform isn't particularly helpful. Struggle, we got rebounding attacks, scary faces making things even worse, but there is a strategy in place. Again, that strategy is kind of just, we're going to struggle as much as we can. It's something at least. Throw the Sleep Seed to make sure Groudon doesn't actually do anything. Partner is legitimately not trying anything, which I found slightly annoying. So as a result, we've got to try to manipulate things as our partner is also slow, which doesn't help either. I'm just handing the partner, hey, take these rocks and throw it at Groudon whenever you can, while I try to do the big damage here, which I can. It's still kind of an situation here. And that's exactly what we do. Partner, I just basically turn into a wall here. Partner is trying to throw as many gravel rocks as possible. Gravel rocks do a set 20 points of damage. These struggles are doing like 40, 50 points. So hopefully we can just stack them up before we run out of Reviver Seeds, Oran Berries, and the like. Because, we kind of don't have There's a limited amount of resources that we can have. Eventually, though, we are successful and we beat Groudon, which is very fun. Jump over to Ant Plains now. There's a lot of story beats that occur in between that we're just going to hop over and jump into this area here. You see we've added more throwables because those are extremely helpful. We've got the transforms because that's incredibly helpful as well. And we decide, or get ready, to go through this dungeon with the limited bonuses that we can get. Again, it's not the best, it's something, but it's not ideal. I also, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Recruit people, I didn't in this one. Speaking of this one, hey look, a monster house with 6,000 Nellikits, and also a couple of other folks. I want to show you this because this is a problem that Ditto has immediately, and you can probably tell this. With Struggle, as a move in general, it's not particularly great. On top of that, the fact that it's taking away our own health means that we can't use it too often, and when you have a lot of enemies like we do here, Struggle becomes that much more of an issue. Again, with both of our partners, best case scenario, we can get 8 of them off, and then we'd faint. Best case scenario, we get 8 of them off, and both of us are sitting at 1 health point. Even if all of them are one-hit KOs, it's still going to require some Reviver Seed usage here. And it also requires a turn to use the Transform to run out of, thereby allowing us to use Struggle. So this is an issue, basically. And it's an issue that we will soon find a solution for, though not quite yet. For now, though, we somehow survive all this, burn through a bunch of Reviver Seeds. You can see like half my bag is effectively plain seeds. And eventually, it leads us to this situation here. So, I'll be honest, I reset at that point because of how many Reviver Seeds we used. Went through again, didn't have to worry about the Reviver Seeds. This is the solution that I was talking about a little bit ago. Vacuum Cut. Vacuum Cut is one of the Mystery Dungeon exclusive moves. It is a room-wide move that deals 18 points of damage, as you can see here. It is also, weirdly enough, a move that Ditto can learn, which is interesting because Ditto actually cannot learn any moves in these games, with the exception, apparently, of these Mystery Dungeon exclusive moves. These are typeless, these are, again, unique. You're not going to find these in the main series games. And apparently, if you can find the TM for them, I found the TM for this also in one of the one of the non-canon dungeons, if you want to consider it that way. I also found Wide Slash, which is another Mystery Dungeon exclusive move that actually Ditto can learn. What it is effectively any foes in front of you and diagonally to you, so 3 spaces. You can do damage to all 3 of them at once, and it's based on your attack and all that. Weirdly enough, Ditto can learn them, and that turns into our strategy here. Now, it's not particularly helpful all the time. You can tell we faint quite a bit, as you can see here, but it is a helpful opportunity. Now, it does mean that my partner can't actually struggle, but since they weren't really attacking anyway, that's actually not that bad of a thing. As, by the way, we show a little montage of potential issue scenes, because all of these are eventual deaths to us through various different attacks. Our defensive stats, which you might have noticed earlier, you might tell now, they're not good. And as a result, we constantly are taking massive amounts of damage. To the point, effectively, where we couldn't even go into the desert instead. We had to decide a brand new method of going through it, trying to get even more Reviver Seeds and just basically over-prepare ourselves, which will be the trend going forward. Over-preparing ourselves is basically the only way we can get through the dungeon. Eventually, though, we are successful. Reach the end where we see a bunch of quicksand whirlpools and this weird feeling that we have that we recognize this location. Ditto somehow pushing us back. Next day, I override Ditto and I run over to the quicksand area and Ditto runs after us. I jump in, Ditto jumps in as well. Oh my gosh, there's a dungeon here. Let's get going. The Vacuum Cut, again, you can see the impact the Vacuum Cut has, which is already going to be bonus experience points and everything, and leads us into a boss fight here. It's another one. In fact, it's one that could also be of slight concern, and like most boss fights will be going forward, fighting against Mesprit. Here we go. Time to fight Mesprit. Now, this fight turned out wonderfully, he says sarcastically. As you can see, I'm trying to force my partner to use Transform. They're refusing. It doesn't help in the long term. Try to go for a Sleep Seed. Mesprit dodges it. Try to go for a Grimy Food. Finally, something works after the first one misses. First one, I believe the Mesprit caught it. And then hand partner Gravel Rocks trying to do the same strategy as the Groudon strategy. We don't have a lot of Reviver Seeds in the first place, which isn't particularly helpful either. And eventually, after using that one there, failing to use Transform properly, Future Sight is going to set damage at a high number, and that high number is done. So, not great. Second time around, this is probably the funniest battle in this entire video. It's up there, for sure. So we started off in a similar sort of vein. I'm already preparing things. I have my partner with the gravel rocks. They're already set in stone. I'm basically saying, hey, go run off in the distance or wait there and just chuck rocks while I decide to use struggle and try to force Mesprit to focus on me. That's basically what I do. So vacuum cuts, gravel rocks, I'm running away, and it turns into one giant game of tag, which is very funny here. Future Sight is great, because unless you hit me, I'm not actually going to take those damage points. More gravel rocks being thrown, more vacuum cuts being done. Mesprit is just kind of like chasing after this one individual, aka me, while I try my best to avoid everything that could possibly happen. We continue it even more from here. I gotta every now and then take a hit effectively. As more rocks are being thrown, I take a regular attack. Not that big of a deal. But once I get that diagonal lane, then there's more free spaces as Mesprit continuously tries to chase me down. I am eventually going to, after a little bit of decision making here, throw another sleep seed, allowing me to kind of bypass Mesprit, go grab those rocks that fell down on the ground, and buy additional time here after handing these rocks over to Ditto 2 here. So more vacuum cuts, and away we move on from there. Again, it's a slow and steady process as we just cross our fingers Mesprit doesn't go for something that's extremely damaging. More sleep seeds, more rocks, more struggles, more of all that, we succeed. Now, by succeeding, we may or may not have inadvertently caused time to stop in this cave, which isn't great. It wasn't on our game plan. So we're going to try a take 2 here in Crystal Cave to hopefully not have that happen. Crystal Cave we go. That fight, I think, absolutely, when I went through that fight, I was thinking there is no way this is going to work, and somehow it did through the power of weird mechanics and Mesprit insisting on chasing me down because I was technically the closest opponent. It somehow worked, and I'm totally okay with it, although I do question Mesprit's IQ, I guess, to use a mystery dungeon term. More Beldums, more Crystal Cave shenanigans, more TMs that I will not be able to use. Trust me, I checked all of them once I found out that the vacuum cut. Why I forgot the name. That vacuum cut would, once it worked, I was like, all right, Ditto. Maybe it's a hacked Pokemon. Maybe it's some weird bypass thing that they didn't think about. Maybe they just, maybe they programmed it wrong or something like that. So let's just go check and see if everything can work here as we lose some more fights. Eventually, though, reaching the bottom of Crystal Lake. This is a cool area. It's a nice, calm lake with everything going okay. Azul probably lives here. There's a cool little glowing area. I don't know how Ditto sees something there because I certainly don't, but Grovile's there. Grovile, actually, by the way, they haven't shown up much in this series at all. They're the bad guy. So Azul tries to prevent Grovile but from stealing the time gears by activating Mirror Wall, a trap card in Yu-Gi-Oh! That somehow brings this up, preventing Grovile from being able to actually take the time gear. And as a result, we show up, and we have the fight of our life. It is the most complicated fight. The battle strategies here are intense. We give up. Boom. Success, because you don't actually have to fight that battle. Later on, Dusk Noir, I say it incorrectly on purpose, eventually goes and tracks down Grovile, succeeds in taking them, and I'm just going to leave the entire scene here as a little midsection ad break, not for ads necessarily, but to talk to you about something that's happening very, very soon. So, while this is playing, do you know about Thankmas? Thankmas is a thing run by Jacksepticeye, a big YouTuber. There's a charity event thing. It actually happened as you're watching this video last week, but the Thankmas event as a whole lasts the entirety of December. What you can do if you're watching this video in the first week that it comes out is check out the actual Thankmas stream that will be occurring next week. That's right. Next week, throughout the day for the most part, on this YouTube channel, there will be a Thankmas stream run here. If you know about the other things I do, like Not a Scratch and Operation E-Clock, I'm a big tabletop role-playing game guy. And next week, on Saturday, the 16th, December 2023, I will be running a full-on, not a campaign, but like a one-shot, where we have a bunch of guest players and everything like that, and donations can actually influence the event. I've done this type of event 2 years in a row. I did this type of event in particular 2 years ago, and I've run this charity event for multiple years now. So if you would like to check that out, all you have to do is check out the channel. We'll be live here on this YouTube channel next week as of this video coming out. Again, that is December 16th, 2023, throughout the entire day for the most part. More details will probably be on the community tab, so if you haven't subscribed already, you should absolutely do so. And if you join the Discord and a number of other locations, you can actually get more information about this event. It is going to be a blast. I've teamed up with a bunch of wonderful people that have experience. It's a Pokemon Ranger system that's been adapted into a TTRPG game that I'm very excited for. So you should absolutely stick around, subscribe to the channel, and join us live next week for that wonderful event, as it will be a blast. We're raising money for a great cause, and I'm very, very excited for it. Now, we could ignore the ad break. Back to the story we go. We've now jumped into the future, which isn't the best, considering there are no shops, and also everything has stopped, and Dusknoir's actually a bad guy, and there's Sableye chasing after us, and we are two Dittos that can't do much of anything. So, because of all of those circumstances, it is now time for us to run as quickly and as speedily as we can. I find it actually a little interesting, for some reason I didn't actually think about this, that both the first and second generation of Mystery Dungeon games require this long sequence of you running away from a bad guy situation. In the first one, you're the bad guy. In this one, you're running from the bad guys, which isn't great. This dungeon in particular isn't a particularly fun one. I do not like the mazes in these type of dungeons, where it's basically a bunch of tiny rooms in the edges, and you gotta wander your way around to get through Chasm Cave, and try to basically test every single room, which is not fun, but we ultimately have some success. I say some success because, as you can see here by the fact that I'm actually showing a different floor that isn't the first or second floor, we don't have complete success, as of course Pokemon like Drifloon have wicked good abilities and can float over the emptiness, the abyss that is below, which again isn't great and eventually leads to Dittos getting knocked out, which we are not a fan of for this particular channel. Able to get through that dungeon though and move on to the next one, which is Dark Hill. Again, it's another complicated dungeon with a bunch of weird situations. I'm trying to constantly test and see, can I run through the walls here? But unfortunately, no, we are still Dittos. Despite the fact that we have transformed into a Ghastly, we cannot actually do Ghastly things like go through walls, which I don't quite understand, but it is what it is at that point. And we, again, continue through Dark Hill, or attempt to continue through with Dark Hill. Unfortunately, the sheer number of ghost types that exist, and the fact that our moves are not doing much damage as a whole. Their moves aren't doing much damage to us either, but Confuse Rays and just ganging up on us and a bunch of different shenanigans that I'm not a big fan of, I have to admit. On top of all of that, partner getting confused means that they can't attack because they completely forget how to, eventually leads, as you will soon see, there we go, to our downfall, as we eventually think. We get through that dungeon after a few 100,000 attempts. That is an exaggeration, though that will not be an exaggeration going forward, and get into Sealed Ruin, where there is a boss fight at the end of this one. This was a boss fight I'm concerned about, because at the end of this is Spiritomb, a Pokemon which at this point had no weaknesses, and also had a move that impacts the entire room, which is Ominous Wind, which can very quickly cause massive issues for us, especially if it gets the stat boost thing that I know this game loves to torment us with. So it had to be prepared well. Reviver Seeds, Sleep Seeds, all the orbs, all the fun stuff, getting through this dungeon, chucking rocks everywhere, as we had to prepare properly. The strategy is actually one that I thought I would end up using in the final battle, and I'll show it to you as soon as we get into that specific fight here. So, this was the game plan. Going into the Sealed Ruin pit. First off, Grovyle is kind of in this weird electric orb thingy thing. Spiritomb has somehow gained the powers of electrical spirit channeling, which is the best way to describe it. Spiritomb, time to fight. Has Ominous Wind, not a good thing. Being in a distance doesn't help if it spams Ominous Wind. So our strategy was simple. First off, cross our fingers it didn't use Ominous Wind. Use Sucker Punch, also not a great thing. We needed to basically come at us, because I did not want to switch places with my partner. So Sucker Punch there doesn't help us either, but now we force it to come at us, and we use a Hunger Seed. Hunger Seeds on your opponent makes everything they do not do anything. You can see, damaging moves, 1 point of damage. Single attacks, 1 point of damage. Considering our defenses are terrible, that's fantastic. Then all we need to do is make sure we don't struggle ourselves to death, effectively. And as you can see here, we get much more successful with that. Ultimately, it becomes a much easier fight. And this was when the idea popped into my head. Not only did I have a Hunger Seed with me, but I believed I had one at my storage as well. We kept one at least saved the entire time. I was going to use a Hunger Seed in the final battle. That is how we would win this. we will do the shenanigans that Ditto is required to do to win. Because it's a Ditto in this game in particular that legitimately doesn't have much with it. Eventually, after just, chip damage after chip damage after chip damage, we are successful. And now Grovyle has joined us. Oh man, was Grovyle a RC Ascent, effectively. Because it was a Pokemon that could do real damage and not get hurt in the process. It had Quick Attack, it had Leaf Blade, it had Dig, a Pokemon that could do high damaging moves, it could be super effective. It was a wild twist. We could actually gain proper experience points without having to sacrifice our own health, to try to get it. It was great. I took full advantage of this opportunity as much as I could. As you can see here, literally charging into fights, just making sure we can get as much health, although I did also try to make sure we weren't actually involved with it. Getting through, eventually moving on to the deep Dusk Forest, and now Celebi's on our squad too. Not only do we have Grovyle, an attacker, we also have a healer in a way of Celebi, also chucking leaves everywhere, which is perfect. We as the main characters can't do much of anything. Steelix here trying to prove us wrong. But we have a couple Pokemon that can actually help us out. Though, having 4 Pokemon on your team isn't particularly great because people can easily get lost and or accidentally fight each other, which isn't great, personally speaking. Despite the fact that we're going after as many foes as we can, we need to make sure that our opponents are going after the foes that can take the hits, which is Grovyle and Celebi, and not the 2 Dittos that are currently Rhydons, because they, despite looking like a Rhydon, do not have the defenses of a Rhydon. You could argue they don't have the attacks of a Rhydon. They probably don't have the health of a Rhydon, because, we're Ditto. I keep stressing that point, but it's very important. Eventually, though, getting through the dungeon after a couple of missteps, sometimes we're not particularly effective at actually getting through the dungeon because we're Ditto. I wish I could have a better explanation beyond we're Ditto as our explanation for everything, but honestly speaking, that does describe every single issue we've had. Like, if we weren't a Ditto, this would be great, but we are. And I have to constantly make sure as well my partner doesn't accidentally struggle themselves, meaning there's a math problem in my head the entire time of how much struggle would actually do in recoil damage. Again, not a great benefit there. Sandstorm here isn't particularly helpful either, and eventually the Steelix here, despite all the efforts that we have, gets the knockout on our Ditto partner friend. Second time around, or maybe the 12th at this point, these dungeons were starting to take up a lot of time because they had to be done attempt after attempt, and the Razor Leafs would also become a popular thing as well. Eventually, we were able to get through it. And now all of us find the passage of time where Dusknoir's sitting there like, hey, I've been waiting for you, also with the Sableyes. And also, this was all a plan to make sure that we could capture all of you at the same time. Also, I have a friend with me. The Lord of Darkness, well, Lord of Time, technically speaking, themselves, it's Dialga. He's kind of corrupted. Primal version. This is pre-Groudon Primal, pre-Primal Kyogre. This is the original Primal, which is they kind of don't know what they're doing. They just chaos, darkness, which is very fun. Eventually, though, we get a strategy, we have a game plan, and we vamoose out of it. Through the power of Celebi and flashbacks, we decide to flash ourselves back to our past. See here. And now we had reached the past through the power of flashbacks, reaching Tree Shroud Forest as the area that we needed to head to, as the first time year would be here. This was the start of pain, I think, to describe it. So far, we've had a lot of troubles because, we don't have a lot of variety in our strategy, but ultimately we get past through the power of items, and struggle still being a move that, at the very least, both of us combined would be able to knock out most opponents. That stops being the case here. Just about. Even with Grovyle. Grovyle doesn't have, Grovyle, despite the powerful moves, doesn't have a lot to go against the majority grass types that are here. And so, Tree Shroud Forest eventually becomes a really big issue. The Houndooms that are here. We find the Secret Bazaar, which is actually very fun, and a full little mini sequence here of showing off the various different items that we purchased. I left those in here because it was interesting. You could see the luck, and the fact that 100 Poke for an Oranberry, which will happen a lot here, feels like it's not a great thing, but honestly speaking, Oranberries are incredibly valuable for a challenge like this, where health really matters as a Pokemon trying to use the health to their advantage. All of this is here, even though none of this stays canon, because eventually we will lose. And this became the start of a lot of time being spent on these particular dungeons, which doesn't go particularly well here. A perfect example for what the fights look like in this particular dungeon, without really trying, is like this, where Petal Dance does 50 points of damage per attack. We don't have that much health. Second attempt through, a struggle there. We got 2 folks now, but that's still not enough. In fact, on the right-hand side of the screen right here, I have sped up over an hour of just attempt after attempt after attempt. It's almost multiple hours, if I had to be honest, of attempt after attempt that ultimately went nowhere. On the left-hand side is much, much later, a mystery dungeon, a mystery dungeon, what am I talking about? A monster house, the monster houses. Those are all terrifying as they are. It's not great, but I thought it would be very interesting. Again, you can see finally ending at this point is that hour plus of failures. We go through about this monster house here. I thought this was a fun little thingy thing. As we get past this Alakazam, that's right, there are Alakazams here, which, one single psychic attack is able to completely wipe us off the face of the earth, which isn't great. But after going through, I got a little greedy. I'll be honest. They were all petrified here. And I thought, well, Grovile's here, they could do damage. There's a cool item, there's a couple of cool items there, gummies in the leg that can actually help us boost our stats. Why don't we just let Ditto guard the stairs here, and then we go one at a time, eventually going through. First off, we'll pick up all these items here, and then one at a time, we'll just chuck something and slowly beat them up. Just do a little struggle here, have Grovile finish them off, just a little, because Grovile's not going to attack them without being motivated to. So we'll just, get a little ready, throw a little item there, slowly pick up the experience points here. Pick up all this stuff, which is very cool, although that turned eventually into an Alakazam, which isn't great, I'll be honest. And we'll slowly pick up the experience points here. It's a nice, calm, cool, coordinated thing. All I need to do is just make sure I can start the fight and let Grovile finish the fight. And Grovile even has Absorb, so in case, health becomes an issue, Grovile could theoretically get it right back. Let's do a little, step up, we'll do the Blast Seed there, and that'll finish you off. We pick up the Poke, which is nice. Just do a check every now and again to make sure our partner isn't being bombarded by their own enemies. Again, not a great thing. You see the trap right there, because there were multiple traps that have dealt with us. Kind of the game warning me, like, hey, I know what you're trying to do here. Don't, you're only going to get to go so far if you keep trying this. And I thought, nah, that's not a big deal. We can start chucking other things. Game does some big damage to Grovile. Like, are you sure you want to do this? Yeah, sure. Let's go for this guy next. Gotta position myself just right. Make sure I'm in the right position there as we throw a TM, because those aren't going to break. You'll just automatically catch them. Then I just pick it right back up. Throw this, then the Lucky Chant. That's where the game decided, you know what? Okay, no more free experience point. The Lucky Chant automatically unparalyzes everybody. And you could see the split moment where I'm like, I messed up. I gotta run. And go through the stairs as we continue to try to get through 3-shot 4. Now, why is this particular scene here? Well, it means that the entire monster house, didn't really happen. Yeah, it's fun. I did all that for nothing. Attempt. A lot of attempts later, eventually we get through. We are successful. We get the first time gear. Also, Tree Shroud Forest is already frozen in time, which isn't exactly great, but we roll with it and return home. How, my question is, did Diglett recognize that it was Ditto 2's footprint and not mine? I'm still not sure. I tried to do the math, but I can't figure it out. We continue through. We get through the area. We eventually need to be told that we're going to go find the hot springs to meet up with Torkoal, who will give us information about the hidden land, which is our final destination. I am here trying, as I find out Kecleon has a shop here, trying to figure out a way I can math out how to get both of these Reviver Seeds, which I can't do. I'm going through the entire dungeon being like, okay, is there any free Poke? Are there any items here? Are there ribbons and other things like that? Eventually, after finally just, being forced to do it to a certain extent, I drop the gorgeous box. I pay for it. I'm able to afford one of them. Also, that gorgeous box, by the way, they sell them 8,000 Poke, which is ridiculous. And right here, this is the split moment decision making where I'm like, do I steal the second Reviver Seed? Is it worth it? I decide against it because, mainly speaking, the distance to the stairs is just too far away. And the Kecleons that would appear would absolutely demolish me. But it was a thought that I had. I know the majority of the audience is probably like, no, you should have done it. I wanted to see what happened there. It would have been a destruction. Move over to Brine Cave now. As we jump through, we learn more that Brine Cave, at the end of it, is this magical sign that seems to match up with the Relic Fragment. But Shoutouts, not a big fan of these folks. A bunch of trespassers, or they're trespassing. They live here. I don't quite understand what they're doing. They're bandits, nevertheless. And it's another boss fight. Difficult boss fight. I'll be honest. They're rock types, which means that we're going to be they're going to resist us. And partner still only has vacuum gut. We don't have any big strategies here beyond just sleep seeds, stun seeds, and chuck stuff. So that's exactly what we do. We also packed basically every single reviver seed we've ever had, and we cross our fingers that the damage we can deal is enough, and also that the moves like rollout do not happen. So that becomes a concern, and we have to go for the sleep seed there, because stun seed. The issue with the stun seed is that once you attack, the stun seed wears off, and my partner doing a full room move makes it that stun seeds just aren't very effective. So we got to basically narrow it down to one foe at a time. Just pick one Pokemon and try to beat them up, which doesn't always work. As you can see here, there are instances where we have to deal with multiple opponents, but luckily we're able to get one of the Almost Star Brothers down. That makes things much easier because then we can again focus on just one single opponent. We're focusing on both the Almost Star Brothers, knock you out, pick up the Sleep Seed here in case we need to use it. I force my Transform eventually after I pick up that rock. Just a single Geo Pebble, but every single one's worth it to a certain extent. Hand the Geo Pebbles over to you, you revive, which actually makes the handing over the Geo Pebbles not really worth it, because you're going to prioritize the throwing move over using Vacuum Gut, which I would argue is better, both for damage purposes and for the fact that we can save the rocks for later, which becomes a very important resource later. Again, eventually, after getting the struggle system all set in stone, starting to check with my own rocks and getting all that done, eventually we are able to, when I say eventually, I do mean eventually, because all these folks have a lot of health points. We are eventually able to override the Mega Drains, which was a concern for this. Kabutops able to recover its own health means that we had to keep dealing more damage than the recovery, which is usually about as much as we were dealing, making things like there was a clock as well, like we have to get this done quickly, eventually get it done. Travel through, long cutscene, then the Hidden Land. If you thought Tree Shroud Forest was trouble, you have not seen anything yet. In fact, I knew it was trouble. It was so much trouble, I instantly said, hey, we're just heading back to Treasure Town, because you can do that, which is a great help at this particular point. Get the monies out and start going for the Reviver Seeds, because, of course, that becomes the biggest thing. We need the Reviver Seeds to be able to stay alive in these dungeons. Now, Grovile's with us this time, so we can actually lean on Grovile to do big damage and be able to make the impact that we can against these foes that are starting to reach those pseudo territories. At this point, it is locked in that we are unable to actually be able to knock out an opponent with two struggles, right? And then if you're stuck in a corridor, that makes it even worse, because then it's only one person, partner's not really doing much after the vacuum cuts run out, so it becomes that much more of a problem. So, with that strategy in mind, which is kind of don't be by yourself, we continue into the dungeon. Alright, we enter inside the dungeon. Hidden Land. It's time to go. We got the vacuum cut set, we got the partner set, we got to make sure our transforms are set, and now we're all set up and ready to go. Here's a good example. Let's see what we can do here against this Magmortar. Well, a regular A attack does 12 points of damage. I have a scope lens on me, making things important there. We have the scope lens allowing crits to happen, making our struggles more impactful. I thought that was more effective than a power band in the long run, because initially I did have power bands. I felt like the scope lens did more. It was a little bit more lucky in that regard. I think I don't know if the math works out that way, but it felt like it worked, and I decided to go with that. But you can tell already we need to make sure that we set it up so that we can really do the damage that we can. Double Manectric isn't great either, because they are very powerful, as most Pokemon here are. You saw the Garchomps and the Manectrics that are here. There's Dragonites that'll show up, the Magmortars. It's all fun and dandy as we get through. We reach the 7th floor in this particular run through. I think this is the first run through, if I remember correctly, and the Lava Plume instantly knocks us out. This is the issue that I have here, is that moves, any single move, can instantly wipe us. No questions asked, no problems. Your defenses are terrible as a Ditto, and you don't have enough health to actually be able to tank any of these hits anyway, making things problematic. Eventually, though, and I do mean eventually, we get this particular run through where we literally run Rampardos around us and get through the stairs, reaching this specific area, the temple, only to find Dusknoir waiting for us. Time for another boss fight. This, to me, was the biggest boss fight. This was the most important boss fight. I had a strategy in mind for Dialga. If you remember previously, we had the Hunger Seed, keep that, chuck it at Dialga, instantly makes that fight completely easy. This I don't have a strategy really for. We need to cross our fingers that we can knock out all the Sableye through vacuum cuts and do as much damage as we can to Dusknoir between me and Grovyle, basically. Because once the vacuum cuts run out, Ditto 2 is basically not doing much of anything. So, that's the strategy we have here. Just trying to be a target for the opponents, try not to use too many Reviver Seeds, and hope the vacuum cuts can eventually knock out all the Sableye. Dusknoir waking up isn't particularly helpful. Detect isn't helpful either because it keeps the Sableyes alive longer than we'd like them to. And of course, we are running low on Reviver Seeds. In fact, at this point, we have one, which isn't particularly great. Dusknoir needs to be taken out of the battle entirely. Final Reviver Seed has been used there, meaning that now it is time for us to really keep things in perspective. We need to make sure that all the Sableyes can leave, which they do there. That's finally the moment we needed there. At this point, we just have to hope that we can take as much chip damage as we can from Dusknoir. The Detect eventually wears out, meaning that the Sableye gets knocked out right about there. And now it just becomes Dusknoir. Leaf Blades can do massive damage. Eventually, struggles that I do will do massive damage. The Vacuum Cut does a little bit of chip damage there. And that basically becomes the strategy. We are racing against Dusknoir's clock. Dusknoir having pressure means that clock runs even faster for the Vacuum Cuts. Confuse Ray means that our moves are no longer going to be attackful, as if that's a word. So we chuck rocks instead as our specific cell. Grovyle, I'm just crossing my fingers. Grovyle understands the game plan here. I try to see, hey, are you going to do any damage? You're not. Ditto 2 doesn't do much, but we succeed eventually and get the Temporal Tower. It is time. Let's do it. The final boss dungeon, effectively. I did not realize how painful this dungeon would be. This is full of Pokemon that are able to resist normal type moves, like Soul Rocks and Lunatombs and Bronzors and Porygons that have Discharge, which will show up eventually. Bronzors that are beating us up. In fact, this here is just a fraction of a montage that I could have made of all of the losses that we took over this time period. Psywaves that basically do all of our health of damage. I'm out here throwing rocks just to make sure we have the room and the ability to know what's coming our way. Oh, look, it's a Porygon. Well, gotta make sure we prepare for that. Oh, wait, Discharge. It's a rude move. Instantly knocks us out. Here's another situation where we get not very far before knocking us out. You might have noticed here, the floors here, we are constantly getting knocked out on the first or second floor. We have not gotten past the second floor this entire time. What does that mean? I make the executive decision. We're going to have to take a little bit of a risk here and head back to the Hidden Land entrance. This means we have to go through the first dungeon again without Grovyle. But I had to do this to collect more Reviver Seeds. Now you might be wondering how I get them. Do I do 10 days worth of missions? Not exactly. I use the power of the Recycling Center. First off, I'm going to need Escape Orbs. We need to trade in as many Escape Orbs as we can, because eventually when they get unlocked effectively, the Reviver Seeds require 2 Escape Orbs. So I'm going to use those transactions, trying to get as many as we can, because I believe we need 20 or 25, it's somewhere around there, transactions with the Recycle Center, 20, 25 different recycling things happening in order for the Reviver Seeds to be unlocked, thus allowing us to trade in for Reviver Seeds. It's incredibly helpful. I knew it was a strategy that needed to be kept in mind in case we needed it. We absolutely need it. So, we're trading in random, plain seeds that we're holding on to. Cherry berries and pecha berries aren't nearly as helpful as heal seeds. So we're tossing those in as well. We got apples and all sorts of, whatever we got. We're just chucking them all in and eventually going to get enough Escape Orbs to get a bunch of Reviver Seeds. We also got this loss here, which isn't particularly helpful. So, let's eventually get to that point. This was also a good opportunity to test out what actually happens if you came back here and just did missions instead of actually going through. So I did a few missions that had Reviver Seeds as rewards, or Reviver Seed, bonus options. This is what happens. It instantly cuts here. And I was worried, oh no, is it the same day? But I headed back down. It seems like it's the next day. So this is actually a way, I didn't realize this, when you progress days at this particular point in the story, there's no wake up cutscene. It's not like you go to bed, you just pop in front of Lapras and your partner's like, hey, we gotta go. So it's the next day. We have the opportunity. We've unlocked the Reviver Seeds, so I started chucking Escape Orbs at the Why Not, being like, please give me as many Reviver Seeds as you can. I think we eventually traded for 6 or 7 of them, which is very nice, on top of the few we got for missions and stuff that we were able to get in stores, meaning we had a lot of them, like at least a page and a half worth of Reviver Seeds, which is incredibly helpful, especially if we can buy a couple as well. Right there, we get an additional one. Every Reviver Seed is going to help. as we get eventually after storage and sorting things out, you can see here the sheer number of reviver seeds that we will eventually have right there. Here they are. Nearly a page and a little bit extra, actually. So, probably enough reviver seeds. We do need to get through 2 dungeons, which is a little more complicated, but with the power of orbs and seeds and other things like that, there's a strategy in mind. So, we take this and we decide, finally, it is time for us to head out to the dungeon. Not really. Actually, technically speaking, I tried a few more times and eventually came back, did some more missions, because the hidden land itself was very tough. But eventually, we get through to this. It's Temporal Tower. You can see our setup here. We've got more reviver seeds than we did previously. Like I said, I went back and actually got a few extra, then burned through about a quarter of them, getting through the hidden land. We're just taking everything we need at this point. XI seeds, max elixirs. That hunger seed is key to my strategy. Grab that as well. Grabbing a few more orbs, making sure that we can organize things. We only have 40 spots in our bag, and I'm basically trying to get to 45, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But have an idea in mind, got a strategy in mind. It's time to enact it. But before we can do that, we need to survive Temporal Tower, which is a pain. We get through, though. We finally get to the pinnacle. This was like an hour and a half later of attempts, maybe even more than that. But eventually we get to the pinnacle here. Time gears are supposed to go there. All we need to do is plug them in. Oh no, it's the boss fight that I was thinking about. Here it is. It's primal-ish Dialga. So it's time to have that final boss fight. Here we go. Now, Roar of Time is a move that Dialga has. It's not good because it's a full damage move, kind of like the Ominous Wind we were talking about a little bit earlier, except it's a guaranteed knockout, like it is there. But it does cause him to pause. I throw the Hunger Seed, and it misses. Our strategy is doomed. Dialga picks up the Hunger Seed. Our strategy is really doomed. I'm trying to do anything at this point. I go Violent Seed to try to boost my attack because that was my next strategy, and now my hunger has dropped by a little bit. Luckily, it does not have the same effect if they throw it at us. So I throw the XI Seed. Now I'm throwing rocks. This is a longer strategy that we had in mind, but it was an opportunity. The Vacuum Gut is dealing chip damage as well as Dialga stays far away, and we're throwing more Geo Pebbles because it's all we really got, Iron Thorns and the likes. We're just basically dealing chip damage and crossing our fingers. Dialga gets near enough to us that we can struggle, but also far enough away that it doesn't actually hit us, which is not a thing. Dialga eventually gets near us. Now here comes the strategy. We have 4 Reviver Seeds. We've got My Struggles. We've got Ditto kind of just sitting there. Roar of Time does some damage there. Transform runs out. More Roar of Times knocking us out. We're basically out of Reviver Seeds at this point. Vacuum Cuts, Metal Claws, Transforms, Success. How? I do not know. I do not understand how this worked. It literally, I had a strategy coming in of using a Hunger Seed, and instantly it did not work. And immediately, not only did it not work, Dialga tried to use that strategy against me, and I don't know how we were able to win the fight. I'll be honest. You saw it there. You want to slow it down, see it again. You can. I don't understand how that worked. This was the first attempt as well. Like, I was struggling through some of the other boss fights, right? It took Mesprit a few times, took Groudon a time. The weird strategy, Mesprit strategy involved playing tag, and this one had this easy fight. And not easy because of, like, the Hunger Seed strategy, or we had a, Force Palm with Violent Seed combination. And we ate the Violent Seed, sure, but somehow that ended up working. And we won. That was the Ditto challenge. In a nutshell, chaos in a box. I do not remember how the Blue Rescue Team challenge was, how difficult it was. I do remember the weird glitches that occurred. This game, luckily, does not have those same type of glitches. But it was an interesting challenge, but ultimately a successful one. Now, as we get through the credits here, you can see Ditto going through the challenge, and we eventually leave with the credits. I want to thank you for watching, and this is where I'm going to talk a little bit, so I would hope that you would stick around for this, though I understand if you won't. It's been a year since that first Ditto challenge came out, and where eventually, not quite a year, because it was a few months afterwards, where it somehow hit the algorithm, and this channel blew up from maybe a little over 100 subscribers to well over 1,000 subscribers. So partly because December is challenge month, partly because tomorrow, as this video comes out, tomorrow is exactly 1 year since that challenge went out that eventually blew up this channel. I want to thank you for being a subscriber, whether you just watch the challenge videos, whether you watch all of the playlist things as well, all the long playthroughs that I do inside of like in an old school YouTube vibe where you're just chatting and talking about the game, doing random voices and all that sort of stuff. Whether you watch one video or all of them, I want to thank you so much. I want to thank the creators of this game as well, which will be going on the screen right here, the staff credits. Shout out to all of them as well. And shout out to you for, again, liking, commenting, and subscribing. As mentioned in the community tab, the Pokemon Ranger series, that is, not Ranger, sorry, the Ranger series, Ranger One-Shot, for Thankmas, that'll be occurring next week. You can check that out. That'll be live on the YouTube channel right here. Is going to be in place of any challenge video that would come out. Otherwise, every other Saturday this month is going to have a challenge video. On top of that, the rest of the days of the week, you're going to be seeing the Pokemon Conquest Challenge, which isn't really a challenge, it's just a playthrough. But I'm doing that playthrough on this channel so that eventually I can do Pokemon challenges in Pokemon Conquest. Because a lot of people do the main series challenges or the fan game challenges, which are cool. I love those, and I've done one or two of those in the past. And I'm certainly interested in doing those going forward, but also the spin-off games deserve a little bit of love, and that's what I'm here to do. Play those games in weird, odd ways, like using Ditto and somehow winning in the process, using the power of items and everything like that. Dialga here, using the power of a higher power to bring me back to life, just like I'm somehow using the higher power of Arceus probably to be able to somehow get through all these challenges in time for the videos to come out. So, as we come back, I could do the same thing as last time and hint at post-game, but I won't. Thank you for listening, watching, enjoying in any way, shape, or form that you do, and until next time, take care.